But why do we see the world so negative today when we've never had it so good? Like you said, you said, like we never had it so good. And the stuff you see going on now, we can talk about all the calamities, but we've never had this, right? We never had an iPhone. We never had food to walk into the shelf. We had to kill it or grow it or wait for a season or go hungry.
And I'm going to stop you there for 1 second.
Yeah.
I was just having a conversation with another friend the other day just about that, about how can people, if we were looking at like the life expectancy, so there's a couple of things you said there that I want to address and keep your train of thought. That's excellent. Is one is, with 100 years ago, 200 years ago, just in 100 years, it's been crazy. 300 years ago, look at life expectancy, what it was 300 years ago. Look how people lived before plumbing. Look how people lived, and now in the quality of somebody's life, even somebody that has just a very simple life, a menial job, doing something, cashier, something like, which is still great. And it's not to take everyone is equal, but just something simple. They live like better than a king lived, and so how can we be unhappy? How can we always look for this way or this reason for unhappiness when we live, like as you said, we want chicken, we go, it's all prepared for us and ready to go. We have ovens, we have microwaves, we have clean water, we have running plumbing, we have electricity, we have phones, we have all this stuff, and we still find a way to be unhappy. It's mind blowing. What else do you want? What do you want? What is it? What would it take? And then something you said before too about, about training and how you were helping people earlier. And then, sometimes you feel like, maybe I let them down because, they stopped the routine. But I always say that, self-help, it's called self-help for a reason. It's up to yourself. I could show somebody, you can read a book. I can't change anybody. I can only show them and show them those ideas. And if they can adopt them, they will level up or improve, but by themselves. So it's self-help. Right. You could show someone the greatest health routine, nutrition, Isagenix, we'll talk about that later, amazing, supplements, amazing way to exercise. And they look at all that and they say, David, that's fantastic. And they put it on a shelf and they said, it's not your fault, man. You gave them you did everything you could. And the blame isn't on you. And the blame is always for anybody, is to take responsibility of their own life. It's always on
you. But it was interesting because when you looked at, but I was trying to figure that negative bias piece. I was trying to figure that part out and looking at, and when Jordan Peterson was talking about the loss of the scaffolding of Judeo-Christian culture, and that the world was trying to get rid of it, trying to eradicate it, and it's not that you have to be a Christian or an atheist, or you don't have to be of any particular faith or idea, but if you drop underneath the conversation, there was a scaffolding that held everything together. So the world was trying to kill me. It was a very dangerous life expectancy, as you said, is very, very short, and we had to huddle together. We had to, and so we didn't complain over petty things like we see now, right? We didn't whine because that wasn't your biggest problem today. Your biggest problem today was just staying alive, not getting eaten by that thing, and not having the winter season kill you and freeze your children to death. So we had bigger problems, and I think the German philosopher Nietzsche said something to the effect that if you gave people everything they needed, all the food they could use, all the food they ever could want, and get rid of all and give them all their life necessities, and all they had to do was busy themselves with the peeling of grapes and the furthering of the species, they would go out and start breaking things just for something different to do. And I look in the world now going, that's kind of what we see. People are just smashing things because life is too good. We don't have wars going on inside of our countries here that force us to get rid of all whatever's petty, whatever is nonsensical, and get rid of what doesn't matter to focus on what truly matters, which is survival. What we're missing now is just that, right? What does it mean? What is our core identity? What is our core philosophy? And what I found with personal development kind of went the way of fad diets. It went the way of fad exercise routines, and so there's no foundation. There's no scaffolding to build on that. So if I'm going to be a martial artist and I want to my black belt, well, I've got at least an 8-year journey, and I start with the basics, and I build the scaffolding, and I build and I build and I build until I have mastery. And even at the level of black belt, just black belt means I mastered the basics, and I'm just beginning. Like I feel like I'm at a level where I've just broke the surface. Now the real work begins. And people, wow, you didn't know all this stuff. I said, I don't know anything. I just have a really good view of what I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
But that scaffolding part was really important, because if you look at the negative bias that the world, that our nervous system is reacting to, and it's the brain just saying, what does this mean, right? We have this thing going on in the world. I'm not sure what it is, and I won't get into that conversation. But we have this thing going on in the world that's really has disrupted everything, and it's evoking all these responses. But it's different in everyone, and the way we respond. So all this information is coming in from the media and from our conversations with friends and family, and so the brain's trying to make sense of it. But if there's no foundational core premise of how you view the world, and saying, this is where I am, this is my core view, my core philosophy, and this is this place I'm going to view the world from, then this information coming in, all this negative information is lighting up all these negative experiences straight across the framework of my history, my entire history, right? So fear that happened, 35 years ago, trauma happened 20 years ago, this bad thing, that bad thing. Because it's like in the physical body, when stress comes to the body, the areas that are currently stressed actually get elevated. The energy inside, let's say, people say, I carry a lot of stress in my neck. Yeah, not really. It's not exactly true. What happens is that you have a pre-existing issue with excessive tone in your neck because you've been on your computer for 8 hours. So it's too much tone in your neck, right? So that's a neurological issue. So the brain recognizes that there's all this energy here. You have a stressful thought, which is, as you said, it's chemical, but it's also electrical. And the energy goes to the body, and it takes those areas that are currently tight and it just winds them up even more. So stress goes to where stress resides. It looks for more of its own kind, right? And we have a negative experience coming in, and if we don't have say chosen filters, a way of filtering it that we decided in advance, and how that's going to happen, right? We have to decide in advance. But if we don't, that information comes in, the brain's going to go, okay, well, say there's credit cards at an event. So, well, this just happened. What does this mean? Brain's going, it doesn't feel very good, doesn't sound very good. You know what? 1974, that didn't feel good or sound very good, and it's actually quite similar. Let's use the emotional content of that. But the problem, 1974, is I'm 9 years old. So the emotional maturity of me of 9 gets dumped into the body. And Brene Brown pointed this out to me, not to me specifically, but as she was speaking, she's saying, when the brain dumps these neurochemicals into the body, into the brain, these emotions hijack the prefrontal cortex, and I become 9 years old. And so when somebody says, that's totally out of character for you. Yeah, totally characteristic for a 9-year-old. That's so unlike her. Yeah, totally like a 13-year-old, but so unlike a 35-year-old female. I'm not feeling like myself. Or actually, I was talking with my brother's visiting, and we were talking about this last night, and he said, and why do people say you just need to grow up? Why? Because the emotions of my childhood and my past are just, those are these crazy filters that are, information is coming in, the brain says, well, maybe it means this from 1974, maybe it means this. I don't know that's going on because I haven't chosen a core way of being and feeling and viewing the world. So I don't have the ability to distinguish. I can't filter it. My brain just playing the match game. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel? When did you feel that? When did you see that? When did you feel it? When was the last time? And that's all done by my unconscious mind, and it's trying to make sense of the world.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's very well said. That's very, very interesting. And I think that when you're 9, your perception and your beliefs. So let's say we start off. It's not 100% true, but a blank slate, right? And we start 0 to 5, right? 5 to genius level. We have this kind of thing. We start saying, okay, what is it to be? You look at your parents and you say, okay, what does it be to be role models, people around you? What does it mean to be a man? How does a woman act? What does it mean to be a woman? And then what does it mean to society? And then you meet friends. You start building all these beliefs, and then certain things, like, you know, as you're saying, when you're 9, like something like really could hit you in a certain way and be like so traumatic. But if you removed yourself and you're an adult looking at it, you're like, okay, like somebody gave you, let's see, you had a birthday party and you had like four of your friends were there, and they gave out pieces of cake and they just cut it randomly, but you ended up with the smallest piece, just like randomly. And then you said like, oh my God, like they don't like me. Like, obviously they gave me the smallest piece. I'm the most insignificant person here. Do I say something out loud, or was it on purpose? Like, or does all of my friends think I'm the most insignificant person? Right? You could just go off, right? Yeah, like on this crazy negative trail. And now, like every time cake is given, like you either cut the biggest piece for yourself to show that, like, I'm the alpha, or you know what I mean? These stupid things. But and if you don't know and you have never thought about it, there's certain things I catch myself and I say, isn't that strange that I do that? And I say, why? And I try to reflect and say, why? Where did this start? You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that introspection is perfect. You know, it's well, and actually, it's a great segue into how would you know the difference. So again, it goes back to the physical. If you're doing a bicep curl and yet it really hurts your left knee, do you continue doing the bicep curl? How do you know it's a bicep curl? Well, because what it looks like. Where do you feel it? So the question, I'm a bodybuilder, so one thing that bodybuilding I didn't find was great for a lot, but it was really good for one thing very specifically, to get this, to connect to this. Hyper aware. I can get the bottom of my left lat to contract by itself. It's that hyper awareness of body and that connection to your body. So again, it was just really interesting parallel. And maybe, and again, maybe at the risk of I oversimplified it, but it just made sense to me. And I'm sure people, as they listen to it, either they'll, and I'm always willing to fill in the blanks of information that I'm missing. So never be afraid to feed me more data, because I just want to keep exploring this idea. But so if I take somebody in the gym and said, okay, first thing we're going to do is that we're going to turn on all your core muscles, right? We're going to, let's say for a bicep curl, for example, we're going to take your shoulder girdle and we're going to turn it on. So the shoulders get pulled back in neutral, and we're going to anchor it, and they're going to turn on your pelvic floor. We're going to anchor your shoulders to your hips, and then soften your knees, and then lower your center of gravity. You got that? Okay, I'm in place. Okay. Now I want you to think about the target muscle. So how do you know that your shoulders are backing down? Well, I did it. So what does it feel like? Well, okay, do you know what it feels like? Yeah, I feel my muscles around my mid-back a little bit tense. Okay, do you tighten your pelvic floor? Okay, what does that feel like? Okay, I have the feeling. I know what it is, but I also know what it feels like, and I know where it feels. I understand where it is. Bend your knees, lower your center of gravity. Now, what's that feel like? Because feelings drive behavior, right? We know that. So, okay, well, this is being hyper aware of the feelings makes it really important, because the feelings will tell you if you're on track or not. So, so I put him in this great postural, stable position now. And the acronym is SAM. I should stabilize, activate, then move. So stable first. Stability, you don't do anything unless you're stable. Don't make a decision, don't move a muscle. So I'm stable. Now, A in SAM is activate. Okay, so what am I training? I'm training a bicep. Okay, what does it feel like to flex a bicep? I don't know. Because most people, their hand is negotiating with the weight, not their bicep. So the sensory information starts here. So I feel it here and I see it there. So what's the brain going to do for somebody who doesn't? I'm a meathead, right? I'm a bodybuilder. So I know how to flex a bicep. I know what it feels like. I've done it a whole lot over the last 30 years. The average person who's an accountant, who's on a computer all the time, the memory map of our movement is all about wrist and fingers. It's not about biceps. So the brain will say, what does this mean? Well, it means the forearm. So somebody doing a bicep curl who's not me will use a lot of their forearm musculature, and all the stress will be here, not up here, because that's the map of the world they have with moving something up and down. Make sense, right? So I'd say, well, okay, what does this feel like? Well, where do you feel this exercise? Well, I feel it in my forearm. What's the exercise for? Well, it's for my bicep. So, and they wouldn't get it. So no, it's just, a bicep curl is not the movement. A bicep curl is a process, a think, feel, then do. So, but first you come from the same position, stable. Stabilize your body, stabilize yourself first. Then what does that feel like? This is what stability feels like, emotionally or physically. This is what it feels like. Good. You need to go there first before you decide what the next part means. Okay, so I'm stable. What does my bicep feel like? Okay, so flex it a few times. Okay, you got that? Not your forearm, but just your bicep. Okay, That's what feels, okay, got that. Okay, good. Now, stabilize yourself. Flex your bicep. Now, I want you to think about shortening the bicep, flex the bicep, and let the bicep move the forearm through its range. What does that feel like? And all of a sudden their eyes go wide and they're going, oh my God, that's so hard. I can't move as much weight. And man, my biceps are burning. And it's just all this excitement of going, yeah, because that was the point.